My family hijacked my vacation plans for my golden sister and her kids. But this time I had my own secret escape plan perspective on this. And need advice with my family situation, which has been building for years. But it's a long one despite growing up in a seemingly typical suburban Connecticut family. I, 33 Fa, have always struggled with this particular dynamic. The golden child has always been my older sister. Megan 45-4 home has been a monument to Megan's life since I can remember, with every wall decorated with her accomplishments and every discussion focused on her life. My parents were too busy getting ready for Megan's college interviews to buy a cake for my 11th birthday, which I can still clearly recall. They even attempted to pass off Megan's leftover graduation cake, which still had her name on it, as my birthday cake as. I grew up, Megan's accomplishments eclipsed every significant event in my life. Megan had recently been selected to the debate team, so my parents were hardly aware that I had made the honor roll in middle school. Megan had to tour a college campus, so they were unable to attend. Hess ceremony, when I won a local painting competition in high school, knowing that expressing my accomplishments would only elicit a brief "that's nice." Dear before the topic of Megan was brought up again. I learned to celebrate them in private in my room. Even our possessions revealed the priorities of our family, the newest technology, stylish clothing, and everything Megan needed for her many extracurricular activities were always in her room. In contrast, my room was filled with hand-me-downs. When I expressed interest in taking music lessons, I had to make do with Megan's abandoned violin, her-old clothes, and her-old school supplies. I had trouble playing the violin since it was too large for me. Will ready spend much on Megan's piano lessons this year. My mother responded in response to my request for a suitably sized one all the way through high school. The trend persisted. I was forced to use borrowed library books to study while Megan received private instruction for her. Sates, my parents took out a loan for her to buy a car for college. They advised me to take the bus when it needed assistance getting around Megan's needs. And SIRAs were at the center of every financial choice family discussion and holiday preparation. It was really difficult in college with the full backing of our parents. Megan had earned her degree from renowned university. They could only agree to pay half of the tuition of public school when it was my turn. They clarified we're still paying off Megan's student loans. You'll need to figure out the rest on your own in order to make ends meet. I worked 2 part-time jobs while I was a student, frequently dozing off over my textbooks. Megan, in the meantime, was beginning at a position our parents had helped her land through their contacts 6 years ago. Megan got married and everything changed, or rather grew worse. For a whole year, our family's whole attention was on the wedding. For her ideal wedding, which included a designer gown, an opulent location, and a guest list of more than 280, my parents took out another loan, despite their concerns about the payments. I recall overhearing them in the kitchen one evening and their insistence that nothing was too good for Megan's special day. Was there ever any quest on that she was her maid of honor? I was supposed to coordinate bridal showers, plan a lavish bachelorette party, and manage any minor emergencies that arose. My mother told me, don't be selfish. Olivia, this is your sister's special time. When expressed how stressed I was with juggling these obligations while working a full-time job. The twins followed. Our parents were ecstatic when Megan revealed she was expecting twins. Stephen thought they were still repaying the wedding loan they contributed to the down payment on a home close to them. I witnessed them spend their retirement money, which they claimed they couldn't access when it needed assistance with college, on the day they signed those documents. However, they claimed that this was different. This is for our grandchildren, who was the default babysitter you ask yes. I do it started out as occasional babysitting their request. Olivia, could you watch the boys for a few hours became a weekly routine, which was later extended into evenings whenever they had appointments. My parents were in favor of this arrangement, stating this is what family does. Megan and her husband Ryan, 46 million, assumed that I would always be there to assist them whenever I attempted to object. Even while I adore them, the twins, who are now energetic 8-year-olds, are exhausting. The routine is the same every weekend. Megan unexpectedly drops them off at my place, usually with a pretext that she needs medicine or has important errand store. The boys run amok, transforming my small apartment into a mess. Megan starts crying about how overwhelmed she is when it right to set limits or ask for advance warning, and my parents criticize me for not being supportive. I put in a lot of overtime to establish myself in the marketing industry. I recently received a promotion offer that would involve longer hours and more travel, my mother remarked. But what about the twins? Your sister needs you here. Megan added, you can't take that job. Olivia, who will help me with the boys, when I brought up this topic during a family din. Rent the hopes of receiving some congratulations. It seems as though my time, career, and life are completely irrelevant. My father adds family should come first. Olivia, my mother, always responds, your sister has 2 children to look after. You don't know what tired really means, when I tried to explain how overwhelming it all. As Megan accused me of being jealous of her life, and her kids, Care, replied, you're just bitter because you're still single, as though my relationship status were the only factor that determines my value as a person, after a particularly demanding weekend with the twins. I made the decision to finally treat myself to a beach vacation last month. They had successfully damaged my laptop top and left permanent marks on my couch. I knew it needed a break. I found a small, modest resort in Florida that was perfect for a quiet retreat. My mother's eyes lit up when I mentioned it during our weekly family dinner. Oh, that's perfect. We should all go together. The twins would love the beach before I could protest. Megan had already started organizing activities. She said, you can't take the boys swimming, while Ryan and I have some alone time. East, how my trip would naturally turn into time for them to be taken care of in exchange for my help with the twins. So, of course, my parents even offered to upgrade my reservation to a better resort, where they would all stay, completely ignoring the fact that this was meant to be my vacation. They began planning activities and outings centered around what the twins would enjoy. I made a decision that would change everything while I was lying in bed that night. I booked a different resort on a quiet small island. I kept the change in plans a secret from everyone quietly. Arted preparing by scheduling time off, work packing my things secretly, and making sure that my emergency fund was available. Even though I know it's dishonest, I simply couldn't take it anymore at the airport. They will be separated from me. While I board my flight to another destination, they will be traveling to Florida. I've disabled location sharing, and I'm ready for the inevitable backlash. Yes, I am aware that there will be drama, as am aware that they will be upset, but I want to put myself first for the first time in my life. I've been the reliable sister, the perfect daughter, and the always available aunt for 33 years to meet my family's expectations. I've given up my social life, my weekends, and my own needs. I was constantly babysitting, so I missed out on dating opportunities. I have turned down promotions that might conflict with the needs of my family, to bear for them whenever they need me. I've put my personal life on hold, right? Now I'm escaping a lifetime of being taken advantage of, not just avocation. I plan to use this as a turning point to set clear boundaries with my family, and maybe even take a complete break from them. I'm tired of always making sacrifices, being the family's support system, and being the reliable fallback option. Reddit, what should I do? Am I overreacting? Is it reasonable for one to want something different for myself? Or should I just go along with their plans and accept my role in the family first? Update, I appreciate all of your help and guidances since my last post to Luthish happened, and I want to explain how it all turned out. Although everything went according to plan, the day at the airport was more emotionally overwhelming than I had expected. I deliberately chose a different check-in area that was far from where my family would be when I arrived early. I watched everyone come through the glass walls of the terminal, Ryan checking their booking details, my parents looking excited, Megan managing the twins, and Megan pulling luggage. I quietly went through security for my own flight as soon as they began heading to their check-in counter. As soon as they realized I wasn't at their gate, my phone started buzzing. The confused messages came first. Where, then the worried ones. Olivia, are you okay? Has something happened? And finally, the angry ones show, could you do this? The boys are crying before I boarded my plane. It turned off my phone. It felt a strange mix of relief and guilt. For the first time in years, I had lived with that guilt for most of my life, but the freedom, it was incredible. And it was new. The crowded tourist destination they were heading to was nothing like the quiet, his land where my resort was located. Years of tension disappeared. The moment I stepped onto the beach, not winced, I watched no family issues to handle, now scheduled to follow just the ocean, mean complete freedom. In fact, the first 2 days were difficult. The twins would be eating lunch, now where Megan would usually need help getting them to bed at this hours. So I kept checking the time. It's hard to break decades of conditioning. However, something shifted on the third day. It ride thing. So I had always wanted to do but never had time for. I enjoyed every moment of my awkward but fun surfing lesson. I made friends with a group of solo travelers when I signed up for a yoga class by the beach. I even had a spontaneous dinner date with an interesting man. I met at the resort's coffee shop one evening event, how it was just a simple dinner. It reminded me that I could live a life separate from my family. When I finally turned my phone back on after 6 days, that was their L test. There were dozens of voicemails, over 350 text messages, and 162 missed. Call 7, my mother had called my workplace to report a family emergency. Luckily, I had already told my supervisor that I would be on vacation. Some of the voicemails I listened to, my mother's tone shifted from concern to anger to manipulation. Olivia, how could you leave your family like this? The twins are inconsolable, did we raise you this way. Even worse were Megan's messages you're Ewan. Everything the boys keep asking for Aunt Liv, I can't manage meetings alone. So Ryan had to cut them short, but when messages stood out, my father sent it, and for once he sounded unsure. Oh, Ivia, please let us know you're safe, even though I don't understand what's going on. I had never heard him speak to him without immediately defending Megan nor asking Metadamore before. I texted our family group chat just once, and I'm having a great vacation when I get back. I'll contact you, please respect my space. It then muted the conversation and went back to enjoying myself. The next 6 days were life-changing, in addition to reading bedtime stories to the twins. I also read 4 novels, spoke with other guests without interruptions every evening instead of rushing home to help with baths and bedtime. I watched the sunset in order to process years of buried emotions. I even started journaling. I had dinner at a small beachside K last night when the older waitress noticed I was alone. She asked if I was okay with being by myself. She said something that stayed with me after I gave her a short explanation of my situation. Family is important, honey, but not at the cost of your own well-being. Putting yourself first is sometimes the bravest thing you can do. I didn't go straight back to my apartment when I returned in order to give myself time to prepare for the inevitable confrontation. I had booked a hotel room for 3 nights during this time. I updated my emergency contacts at work, changed the locks on my doors, and most importantly, wrote down my boundaries. I accidentally liked that coworker's post on social media, which is how my family found out. I was back. My mother and Megan showed up at my apartment building within hours repeatedly, ringing my intercom across the street. I watched them from the window of my hotel room, feeling strangely detached from their dramatic scene. I'm going to meet them tomorrow at a neutral coffee shop, not my place. I know it won't be easy, but I've prepared what I want to say. When I think about it, my hands shake. But I'm choosing myself for the first time in my life, and I know I'm doing the right thing despite the anxiety, the guilt, and the drama that will definitely follow. I'll share another update after my conversation with my family. I'm grateful because Reddit gave me the courage to take this first step toward independence. Second update, a splan my family, and I'm at the coffee shop, and it was even more intense than I had expected. This is what happened. Coffee shop started calmly enough. I arrived early and sat at a corner table where I could see the front door and the emergency exit, a habit I had developed from years of expecting family drama. I could barely hold my coffee cup because my hands were shaking. So much my parents, Megan and unexpectedly Ryan, all arrived together. I am glad there are not wins. I raised my hand and said what I had practiced before they started their prepared speeches. I'm setting boundaries, and they are not up for negotiation. The 2 hours that followed were a master class in emotional manipulation. Megan started crying as she described how my absence had affected the twins. My mom tried to make me feel guilty after everything we have done for you unexpectedly. Ryan attempted to mediate by suggesting a compromise where I would only see the kids every other weekend for the most part. My dad sat quietly and uneasy. Megan's statement, "You're being selfish, family," means sacrifice, was the turning point. Something B. Broke inside me clearly but calmly. I replied, "S, family means sacrifice, but it's supposed to go both ways. When was the last time any of you gave something up for me?" The silence that followed was overwhelming. I said everything for the first time: the years of being Megan's second option, the unfair financial treatment, and the constant belief that my life and time were less important than theirs. It then showed them my calendar from the previous year, with every weekend marked for babysitting and every holiday adjusted to their needs. Trying to interrupt, my mother said, "But that's what aunts do," I answered with something I had never dared to say before. "Not that's what paid babysitters do. And Megan, if you need this much help, maybe it's time to think about hiring one." From that moment, the conversation shifted. My mother followed Megan as she stormed out. Surprisingly, Ryan stayed behind and admitted that they had taken advantage of my availability after being silent. For a while, my father said, "We never meant to make you feel this way. It was something, but it wasn't an apology." I followed through with my plan after they left. I moved to a errant part of the city and rented a new apartment. Though it's smaller than my previous place, it's in a secure building with a doorman who has been informed about my situation. Only my workplace and a small group of close friends have my new phone number. Rebuilding my life from scratch was the hardest part, not the move or the planning. I had no real hobbies and very few close connections because I had spent years being there for me family. It started small. I signed up for pottery classes, joined a local book club, and accepted dinner invitations from coworkers that I had always turned down before it was a strange first weekend of real freedom. I did things that once felt impossible, including staying up late going to a farmer's market and spending hours walking through a bookstore. Megan didn't text me urgently. Mom didn't call to make me feel guilty nor quests for last-minute babysitting. My family's reaction to my move was harsh, but expected when my mother tried to reach me through my workplace. They learned that my new position does not allow personal calls during working hours at one point. Megan even came to my office, but secure it. You had already been notified. She sent a long emotional letter accusing me of tearing our family apart. Ryan was the unexpected development. He sent me an email apologizing for his role in everything. At first, Megan resisted him taking the twins out on weekends, but she has slowly accepted it. It's a small but important change. My parents are struggling to adjust. My dad sometimes sends short messages, usually awkward attempts to start a conversation. Mom goes back and forth. Between angry outbursts and cold silences, she left a voicemail as tweak saying, "When you're done. With this rebellion, we'll welcome you back." This is not a phase, and she doesn't understand my new reality. Is this without constant family interruptions? Work has improved significantly. I'm more focused and productive. After noticing the change, my manager put me in charge of a major new project for the first time in years. I'm also dating casually, but I'm taking it slow internally. The biggest change has happened. I no longer have that constant background anxiety that I carried for years. I've started working out regularly, eating better, and sleeping more according to my therapist's. I finally started the rapey. I am beginning to recover from what she calls chronic family stress syndrome. The twins sent me a GIF last weekend that included handmade notes saying how much they miss me even though it was bittersweet. I stayed firm. I carefully wrote back to let them know that while I love them and need time to take care of myself, I had to write it. Evento Megan will probably not read it to them. There's a lightness about you. Now you look years younger. An old acquaintance told me when I ran into her yesterday. She is right. I feel lighter, despite the angry messages, the emotional manipulation, and the guilt that still comes up. I feel more free. Family love shouldn't feel like a prison sentence. I'm learning that respect for personal boundaries, recognition of one's own needs, and mutual support, rather than one-sided sacrifice, are what real love looks like. My new apartment will be 1 month old next week. This is the first time I've ever dared to throw a small housewarming gathering. Just a few friends from pottery class book club, and work, no expectations, no drama in the family, just people who accept me for. Hoyam will share another update. Update 3 completed update. It has been a life-changing 4 months, and I want to explain how everything has come together. I had been dreading and expecting finally happened last week. My father unexpectedly came to my workplace. His approach was different from Megan's emotional pressure or my mother's earlier frantic attempts when he asked if we could have lunch together. He was calm, almost resigned. We met a quiet cafe near my office for the first time in my life. He really saw Mesh's daughter, not as Megan's sister, or the family's fallback option, he said. You look healthy, and a surprised and happier the fact that I hadn't noticed my unhappiness for years, hung heavily between us. The family had come up with a proposal. They were willing to make changes. So if I agreed to return to my place in the family, I could have every other weekend off. He continued saying they would even pay me for my time with the twins. So if being paid for the obligation would somehow make it acceptable, they still didn't understand. I realized as I looked at them across the table, they did not see me independence as a basic right, but rather as something Tan negotiated at. I said, I'm not negotiating my freedom. I'm living it. The conversation that followed was the most honest one I've ever had with my father. I explained how their constant focus on Megan had affected me, both emotionally and practically. It told him about memories he had forgotten or never noticed, dreams I ignored, achievements overlooked, and birthdays missed. His reaction surprised me. He sat for a long silence in the usual defense of their choices. At last, the said, we thought we were doing what was best for the family. We didn't realize how much we were hurting you, even though it wasn't exactly an apology. It was the first time I had ever felt acknowledged when asked about my new life. That was their old turning point. They listened for the first time. As it talked about my pottery classes, my career progress, and the new people I had met, I even showed him photos of a bowl I had made. Even though it wasn't perfect, I was surprised by what he said next. You seem to have built a good life for yourself without us both. The recognition and the sadness in his voice were real. We agreed at the end of lunch that things would nev. Erbeth the same, again, he gave me my first genuine huge in years as she said goodbye. I hope one day we can be part of your life again, but on different terms. That conversation seemed to trigger another wave of family tension. After learning about our meeting, my mother started a new round of emotional pressure. She has been telling relatives that I need an intervention because I'm having a breakdown. Megan has been posting passive-aggressive messages about selfish sisters and broken families on social media because she feels betrayed by her father's acceptance of my deck. Isn't the difference is that none of it affects me the way it used to. And now have a perspective from my new life that I didn't have before. Their behavior in my eyes is an attempt to regain control. Over someone who has finally found her independence, my new apartment truly feels like home. Now my pottery pieces and photos of my chosen family friends who respect my boundaries and value my independence fill the walls. I've started mentoring junior coworkers at work, breaking the old pattern of one-side support that defined my life for so long. My relationship with time has changed the most, and I'll spend my weekend. However I want. I've started learning Italian, joined a local hiking group, and even began seeing someone who respects and values my boundaries. I'm building a life for the first time that reflects who I really am instead of what my family expects from. Myth Twins sent me a handmade card last weekend, which was clearly written with help. It was filled with sad lines about how much they miss their aunt. This would have once sent me into a spiral of guilt and doubt. Instead, I replied with a kind but firm message explaining that while I may not be present in their daily lives, my love for them hasn't changed. And sometimes adults need to take care of themselves. According to my therapist, I am showing what she calls post-traumatic growth, not just moving on from the past, but creating something stronger and healthier from it. She has helped me understand that I'm not responsible for fixing the dysfunction in my family. Yesterday brought another development. Ryan, Megan's husband, reached out to tell me that my decision has led to changes in their household. Not to blame me, they have finally hired Par. Tea Time helped to assist with the twins, and he has become a more involved parent. Ryan believes it is better for everyone, but Megan is still struggling to adjust. I'm sitting in my home office preparing for a work trip next week. As I write this final update, something I could never have done in my old life, a frame quote that reflects my journey, hangs on the wall behind my desk. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is set yourself free. I want to thank everyone who supported me and followed my story. You gave me the strength to make my own choices. If you're wondering whether offline similar situations are selfish for wanting their own lives, know this: you're not choosing yourself is not selfish. Taking care of yourself is not wrong. Setting boundaries is not betrayal. I don't know how my relationship with my family will evolve in the future. Maybe one day we will find a different kind of connection, one based on respect instead of obligation. For now, I'm focusing on continuing to build the life I've created, including my friendships, interests, career, and most importantly, my sense of self. This isn't just an ending, it's a beginning. And Fort Heifer's time in my life, I'm excited about what comes next. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss more real stories like this.